Hey, what's up, Music 101? Welcome. Welcome to my house. I hope you guys are making the transition to Lander University being online and dealing with the unusual circumstances that we have. Um, so, Music 101, we're going to finish out the semester online, and I'm going to try to make this the class so that it's not too difficult. So we've already had one test. It was 75 or 70 questions, I believe, and everybody did very well. Obviously, it helps that. So everything from now on is open book. So I'm going to give you some assignments, and you've got the time that you need to be able to do them. I don't think they're going to be hard. Just make sure you complete the assignments. So really, so with this online course, we've transitioned to what we're doing this stuff on Blackboard, and there's a connect section where the email I just sent has an access code in it. So use that access code, and that will give you access to the textbook, the e-textbook online. It's the same textbook we had. It's just a slightly different edition, slightly different version. So that textbook is online. You have access to that with that code. Then you also have access to the music, the recordings that you're responsible for, and that's under Resources Media Bank. And you can just basically type in the names of the composers and the selections that I listed for you in this email. So for this next section, you're responsible for 5 recordings. All right, so we started out the semester, and the beginning of the semester, when we were actually in class, we had the elements of music, and then we moved into a section where we were talking about stylistic periods in Western art music, and we moved quickly from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance to the Baroque era of music history. So now we're continuing on, and we're talking about the classical era. So the term classical can be used in lots of different ways, like classical movies, classic rock, classic automobiles, etc., etc. And in this, obviously in our class, we're using it to refer to a particular period in the history of Western art music. The classical era, we're going to say, is from 1750-ish to 1820-ish. And by the way, 1750 is the year that Bach passed away. So classical era, 1750 to 1820. So just a few general things about the classical era. During this time period, it's a big period of change. In fact, the writers and philosophers of the time period called it the Age of Enlightenment. And the reason is because there were scientific advances that had been made over the last century that began to change people's view of the world. The social and religious structures that had existed for centuries began to be challenged. The great thinkers, philosophers of the time began to emphasize the need for progress, and that reason was more important than holding on to the traditions and customs of the past. All right, so that's a big deal. If we've got people starting to challenge these long preconceived views of the aristocracy basically being given their special status by God, and now all of a sudden we have people starting to challenge these ideas, and that, hey, maybe I should have rights as well. So what is that going to do? That's going to lead to a lot of conflict. So there was lots of political and social upheaval, and this led to the 7 Years' War. It led to the French revolutions, the Napoleonic revolutions, and of course, during this time period, the American Revolution. So, classical period, Age of Enlightenment, it's a big deal. lots of change during this time. All right. So with the music, we're mainly going to be talking about, and you're going to check out and listen to the music of three very important composers from this time period, and that is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Joseph Haydn, and Ludwig van Beethoven. So once we start listening to the music, you're going to hear that it's significantly different than the Baroque era, because, as you know, the music from the Baroque era most of it was just like very ornate, very elaborate, very detailed. So what do you think's going to happen next? There'll be a shift, and so now as we start the classical era, start to compose music that's more that's simpler. The melodies are singable, and there's more like a balance and symmetry to the music. And so there's lots of different changes from the Baroque era to the classical era, because of all this change. There's a rising middle class, and for the first time, and so the middle class people want the same thing that the aristocracy had. So they want to be surrounded by music. And so all of a sudden there's lots of amateur music making. And so because of that, or partly because of that, one of the basso continuo, which was a practice during the Baroque era, which was a big main feature of the Baroque era, that basically that practice was abandoned. There's lots of things that that change with the classical era. The symphony orchestra starts to develop, and that's mainly because of the work of, or in part because of the work of Joseph Haydn, where you have a standardized symphony and a standardized orchestra, where you have your families of instruments, your string family, your woodwinds, your brass, and your percussion. So the symphony orchestra was standardized, and basically it's the same. That's the basis for the instrumentation for the symphony orchestra that we hear today, and that you're going to hear in a second. All right, so once again, with the content of this section on the classical period, it's, if you go to where it says ebook and then go to table of contents, you'll see where it says classical period. And so all the information you need is lined up right there in that table of contents. And then also you'll see under where it says resources, you'll see Media Bank. And Media Bank is where you can listen to the music of these composers. So once again, the music of Mozart, Haydn, and Beethoven, those are the three composers that we're going to focus on for this listening. So the first composer I listed there in the email that I sent you, and the first selection is Mozart Symphony No. 40 in G minor, and you can find it right there in the Media Bank. So listen to that. Here, this is, you've heard this before. So that's part of Mozart Symphony No. 40 in G minor. That's part of the first movement. It's a 4-movement symphony, and that's the first movement. So Mozart Symphony No. 40 in G minor. Listen to that. Just listen to the first movement, and for this little assignment that you've been given, that you've got to complete by Thursday at 11:59 p.m. The section they play for you in that listening assignment, you're going to notice that it's in homophonic texture. And what we mean by that, and what you already know because we learned about this, the homophonic texture, basically there is a melody with chords underneath it. And you'll also notice that this movement, the tempo is allegro. So those are the two things you need to know for the assignment that you were given. That's due Thursday. So that's Mozart Symphony No. 40 in G minor. Check it out. It's in sonata allegro form. and actually sonata allegro form is sonata form is an important development in in the classical era. When we were talking about form, and hey, pause this video whenever you need to, because I know I'm going kind of fast. But when we were talking about form, we said that the ways that composers create form is through repetition, because for whatever reason we like repetition, and also contrast. And so basically what sonata allegro form is this. A, B, A. What does that look like? A, B, A. So in other words, A, B, A. So we have the presentation of the material, A. Let's do it again, second A. Now let's go to a contrasting B section and then come back to the original material. So sonata form really is just A, B, A. And once again, in the table of contents, you'll see where it talks about sonata form. So check that out, because the first A is actually called the exposition. And then what happens? The exposition is repeated. The whole exposition is played again, A. And now we're going to a contrasting B section. We're going to call that the development in sonata form. And then let's come back to the original A. In sonata form, that's called the recapitulation. So check it out. Mozart Symphony No. 40 in G minor is in sonata form. And actually, we're going to listen to another piece that's in sonata form as well. But it's not rocket science. It's just basic, like we talked about with form. A, B, A. Exposition, exposition. Development, recapitulation. And so that's what Mozart's Symphony No. 40, the first movement, is in sonata form. Check it out. The second piece that you're responsible for, and this is right there in the email, is Haydn's Symphony No. 40 in G major. Listen to this for 1 second. Simple, tuneful melody. Do that melody again. So this is really cool music. So this is Haydn's Symphony No. 40 in G major. So the movement that we're listening to right now is the second movement. And the second movement is in what we call theme and variations, because you have this thing, bum, 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 bum. That's the theme, that is the melody. And so what Haydn does is presents the theme, and then the theme is repeated 4 more times. But each time the theme is repeated, it's varied slightly, so that we have theme and variation. So we have both things that we like. We have the repetition, because that theme is presented 4 more times, but we also have the variety. Variety is the spice of life. Because each time it's presented, it's changed around a little bit. So Haydn's Symphony No. 94 in G major, and the answer, so that's the question on the assignment, and then theme and variations is the form, and then the second movement, the tempo, is andante. Write that down, andante. So that's the answer to the assignment question. All right, so I'm going to try to move a little bit faster here. So the next thing that you're responsible for is a string quartet by Beethoven. So Beethoven String Quartet in C minor. Listen, this is really cool sounding. Listen to this. Hopefully you can hear it. Oh yeah, we like that. That sounds good. So the Beethoven String Quartet. What's the instrumentation of a string quartet? Two violins, viola, and cello. Cello. So the string quartet also developed during the classical era. So classical era, a lot of this is because of the work of Joseph Haydn. Haydn was significant in the development of classical music. Both Mozart and Beethoven learned a great deal from Haydn. And Haydn was a very prolific composer. What does that mean? He wrote lots and lots of music. He wrote lots of symphonies. And so anyway, so you're responsible for Symphony Number 94 in G major. Just the second movement. It's in theme and variations. Andante, and now we're moved on to Beethoven's string quartet. And so for this one, with the string quartet, we're just listening. That's just the fourth movement of Beethoven's string quartet in C minor, and it is in this. This is the answer to the assignment question. It's in AABA form, and it is in duple meter. So write those two pieces of information down, and you'll get those questions correct. So let's move on let's go back to Mozart for a second and check out a little bit of one of Mozart's operas. Okay, so Mozart was a master of opera. As you already know, the opera was a significant development from the Baroque era. Well, opera was very important during the classical era as well, and Mozart and all these composers wrote in all these different performing media. And so with the Mozart was a great composer of the opera. And so we're going to check out just a little bit of Don Giovanni. And once again, we're just going right down the email that I sent you, Mozart's Don Giovanni, and we're going to check out just a little bit of Act 1. And this is all in the media bank, so make sure you listen to these 5 selections. So Mozart's Don Giovanni, just listen to a second of it here. Okay, so if I, for the purposes of this lecture, we're only just listening to a brief portion of it, but please listen. Make sure you listen to that entire excerpt from Don Giovanni. So basically, this opera that is based on an old legend. You might even heard the story of the legend of Don Juan, who's like this legendary Latin lover, basically, who will stop at nothing to meet his like enormous sexual appetite. And so basically this is Mozart's adaptation of that story. And instead of Don Juan, it's Don Giovanni. And so it's based on that story. And with this opening scene right here, there's actually 3 characters. You're going to hear 3 characters singing. So this is an opera. You're going to hear 3 characters singing. You're going to hear Don Giovanni. And then 2 of the other main characters of the story, Donna Anna and the Commandant. Well, basically during this scene, excuse me, and there's Leporello as well. So Don Giovanni, basically he ends up raping Donna Anna, and then the commandant is her father, and he comes and seeks revenge. And Leporello is like Don Giovanni's accomplice. It's an interesting story. For the purposes of this listening for assignment, the main thing you need to know, it's an opera, and at the beginning you're going to hear 3 characters singing at the beginning of the opera in this introduction. Okay, let's move on and listen to check out one more. Let's go back to Beethoven, and this is the first movement from Beethoven's Symphony Number 5 in C minor, and a lot of you probably have heard this movement before. No. That's not it. So that's the first movement of Beethoven's Symphony Number 5 in C minor. Check it out in the media section of the Connect, and you'll hear the first movement, which is also in sonata form, and it bum 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 bum. So the principal theme is based on 3 short notes and 1 long note. And by the way, that's the answer to one of the questions that you have from the assignment. So the other question that you have for the section that you're responsible for, and that you're going to hear for this assignment, what you're going to hear is the transition from the development to the recapitulation. Write that down. So Beethoven Symphony Number 5, you hear the principal theme, bum 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 bum, 3 short notes and 1 long note, and then you're going to hear in the excerpt that you're responsible for listening for this assignment, you're going to hear the transition from the development to the recapitulation. Transition from the development to the recapitulation. Write that down. And actually, I forgot to mention this. If you were to go back to the Mozart Symphony Number 40 in G minor, write this down. That's what you're hearing as well. You're going to hear the development leading to the recapitulation. The development leading to the recapitulation. That's the answer for the 4th question, Mozart Symphony Number 40 in G minor. So anyway, all right, so that's enough. So that's 23 minutes of me talking. Once again, hopefully you stop the video when necessary, because I know I was going fast and just throwing out a bunch of information. But the main thing is, for these 5 selections that you're responsible for, I want you to make sure you listen to them, and you should be able to, I would say, fairly quickly answer the 4 questions that are associated with each of those pieces of music. So anyway, I want everybody to make an A in this for this, and there's no reason you shouldn't, as long as you do the assignments. If you have any issues, send me an email or call my cell phone number. All right, talk to you soon.